There's a special merit for games that you can go back to, especially games that hold value in a narrative or art style. Replayability of games in this regard shows the strength of both the world that you, the player, inhabit in these worlds, but also how attached you are to the addictive gameplay loops that the game has and keeps drawing you back to it. We all have games like this that we come back to time and time again, whether it be for some of these reasons, or maybe due to nostalgia, battle passes, the FOMO, fear of missing out on the weekly updates, or cosmetic and camos. This video, however, isn't about those games that you come back to weekly and time again. It is instead focused on the games that you've forgotten about. The games you've played once and set down entirely. The games that seem to have a single story to tell, and then they conclude with a finite end. These are the games that you play for the first time, again. Picture this. Do you know that feeling in school or other situations when there is an assigned book or text that is given out and you never fully read it? I'm sure like many there is a general argument that a novel is too long to read, and with the hustle and bustle of life, time just seems to slip by without any remorse for the procrastinating reader. I too have been in this situation where, as an English major, book upon book seemed to pile up throughout the semester, and sometimes novels that I was looking forward to get put on the back burner, and I don't get to fully immerse myself in the stories and knowledge that is being presented. It's the feeling of knowing the general plot and feel to a novel, yet never fully grasping the larger picture at hand. And that is what I want to express in this regard, to playing a game again for the first time. Playing a game again is knowing the rough feel of the game, but not the full picture. There can never be the full satisfaction of playing a game again for the first time, but long breaks in between playing games has a similar effect in which our minds tend to forget the complexities and stories that games have, as well as the impact that they might have when we first experience them. However, there is something to be said about video games in comparison to homework. Video games are not a chore or an assignment in most cases. Instead, video games are an experience in which the player gets to choose the type of adventure that they would like to travel towards. It could be a multiplayer game or MMORPG, which keeps them fully immersed and in contact with other people in the world. Or, alternatively, a single-player game which creates a story-based experience in most cases, with an emphasis on narrative and strong characters. I do not say this to fall under the impression that playing a game over and over again is a bad thing. Rather, I comment on these games because of the value of time and patience of making a game, which you come back to after a long extension of said time. Italo Calvino, Italian storyteller and novelist, says the following about the importance of time. Quote, "Narrative time can also be delaying, cyclic, or static. In any case, a story is an operation on duration, an enchantment that affects the flow of time, contracting it or expanding it. Sicilian storytellers use the expression, 'stories take no time.' The craft of storytelling in the popular tradition is shaped by functional concerns. It omits pointless details and insists on repetition, as when, for example, a fable consists of obstacles that must be overcome." And that is one of the suggestions that I want to bring up for this video essay. Stories, and in this case great stories in video games, immerse the player so much that time passes in a blurred state because you have been enjoying it so much. The same can be said, on the other hand, however, with the idea that sometimes the best approach to video games is slowing down your experience and enjoying the process of reliving it. Sometimes time works against us in funny ways, and we neglect games or set them aside until they are almost forgotten about and their message is obsolete. So going forward, this video is both a love letter to games, as well as some games that I think deserve another playthrough with active participation, which can have breathtaking and thought-provoking stories if given the time to tell them. With that introduction out of the way, let's get into the actual subject matter and specific games that have been on my mind. With this list, there's of course many that I will not be able to cover, let alone the ones I haven't been able to encounter. Some I will be talking about in depth about, while others may receive a few remarks in short. Of course, if there's anything you think I missed out on, or ones that you personally would like to comment on, feel free to comment down below and create conversation. What is there to say about a game like Firewatch, which is already so beloved and so full of artistic choices both visually and story-wise? It's a game that's been talked about for years at this point, but its impact remains as equally as important as when it first came out. From the outside, the game can be seen as a portrayal of a forest ranger and their daily struggles, as well as the relationships that are made with confinement and the people we associate with. The voice acting, the simplistic art style, as well as the colors and vibrance all add to this feeling of loneliness and isolation within the game, and it creates a believable space to tell its narrative. I've been out in the forest and woods plenty of times, but never until this game had it felt appealing, or like every direction and navigation was teeming with life and adventure at every corner. It is truly a game that is worth going back to, and has grown more philosophical in nature the longer that it has been out. In a recent semester of college, I took a games and narrative course, in which my professor mentioned briefly how Firewatch completely changes if you take this game slowly, and more specifically when you go into the settings and turn off map markers and visual help guides to guide you where you need to be. Its tone changes completely when the player is forced to navigate the forest alone, with only the help of the map that they carry, as well as the topographical landscape that surrounds them. Because of this, it creates a more realistic approach to a game, and a great challenge for anyone who has time to burn, and a love for the mechanical side of games. The Stanley Parable is a perfect concoction of what makes a game great. It's an easy premise, really, and the introduction of the game tells it so well with its simple phrase of, "This is the story of a man named Stanley." There's no other game that I can think of where simple household items would convey such emotion as a bucket, a broom closet, or even a decision between two doors compared to this game. Where when disobeying a narrator, or finding a path that they are not supposed to, the player is able to relish in the journey that they are taking in the game, with both rule breaking and choosing their own branching path in a world that is so full of them. It's why the multiple endings to this game are still one of the cleverest in creating impossible scenarios that are both outright far-fetched, but still teeming with humor and emotion, in which the player can discover, and not to mention, feel the need to make sure that they don't miss any. Each ending in this regard feels fresh and humorous in a way that had never been quite as well done before, and still hasn't been since. To have multiple endings in a game can sometimes feel prolonged or distracting, but in this scenario it fits perfectly into the title and meaning of the game. This is, of course, one of those games which too fits into the category of a game where you play for the first time again. You may remember the endings, the dialogue, and some of the choice points, but there is a strange nostalgia and yearning for the offices that Stanley infinitely journeys through, looking for his greater purpose in life. But what about games that are more recent? We've talked about two staple games in the early 2010s, 2015s. But what about games that are more recent? Games with different art styles and storytelling capabilities. Two of these come to mind which I have played through more recently, and of course, like the others, are phenomenal narrative journeys of self-expression as well as discovery. The first is the game called Sable. Sable is a cross-hybrid between Tears of the Kingdom and a minimalistic cel-shaded art style, which makes the journey of Sable fantastical, as well as joyful to be able to explore. In the vast deserts of Sable's homeland, Sable is able to adventure out of her home village to find her purpose in life, as well as to collect different masks in which help define that person that both her, as well as you, the player, want to be. There are so many simple moments in this game that create a sense of vastness and scale, a yearning for exploration as well as a subtle somberness that befalls upon you when you're all alone in the world. alone in the world that is beckoning for you to explore. Sable is also a game about relationships and meeting and greeting people. It's very Studio Ghibli-esque, where every interaction seems so friendly and full of care, or on the other hand, dangerous and hard to approach. What I'm trying to get at is Sable has a sense of whimsy as well as whimsical nature that makes it so appealing to be able to journey through the harsh wastelands and deserts by yourself. Another game that is more recent has been also one that has received a lot of praise for both its art style as well as storytelling capabilities with minimal dialogue, and rather expressed through written document and choices. Blueprints was a game that came out earlier this year in 2025 that I honestly didn't expect. Puzzle games have never been my forte, but with this game being a mix of the room styles of the likes of Betrayal at House on the Hill, as well as having a Clue vibe to them, I couldn't help but get excited to explore every single possibility that the Mount Holly Manor held in store. The premise is to find the 46th room of this manor, as well as exploring the mansion and creating rooms as you go to get to the antechamber. It's a journey of exploration, but also of mystery, trying to piece together the overall story that is happening, as well as why your character is so focused on getting to their end goal. The music in addition creates a fantastical element to the overall story, and this is a game that I feel like is going to be one of those games that fits into the category of coming back to and playing again for the first time, years later. Does this game need any introduction? Elden Ring has shattered expectations across the board, with its base game as well as the DLC that is available for it. The next installment, Night Rain, has also came out, and it's honestly so surprising how immersive this game can be. Having written a full video on this game before on this channel, I will instead focus on what brought me back over and over again on new characters. There comes a feeling of starting a new journey in this game that encapsulates everything I love about Elden Ring. Even though I have completed the game 5 or 6 times at this point, with countless hours on countless characters, there are still so many opportunities for exploration and discovery. It feels like a book in which you have read multiple times, but each time you get something different out of it. The cutscenes still hit hard, the fighting mechanics feel fluid and satisfying, and the hidden areas and items keep me coming back again and again, with more opportunities to choose a different path forward as a Tarnished. The new installment is just as great, where it feels like Elden Ring Light, where you are able to jump into the action and get that Souls vibe for 15 or 20 minutes of your time. The draw of Elden Ring is being able to relive that memory of opening the door for the first time and seeing the Erd tree far out in the distance, rising golden out of the ground, and being awed at what a video game can portray in its story as well as art direction. Games during COVID have always stuck out to me as being some of the most impactful, as well as some of the ones that I continually enjoy going back to revisit. Sea of Thieves is among this list, and one of those influential games that really made all the difference during that time. Longtime viewers of this channel may even remember old videos or funny moments from this game, and it is beautiful to be able to go back to it this year. Pirating in video games has always been a type of genre that feels so full of potential, yet few dare to even try out creating it. Skull and Bones is a great example of this, where Ubisoft tried to make a pirate game that felt reminiscent of Sea of Thieves, yet more realistic and down to earth. Yet in their attempt, something just didn't feel quite as right as the game like Sea of Thieves does. Sea of Thieves excels in creating a world that feels lived in, a world in which every island and every encounter feels like its own story and expedition. It doesn't matter of the weather, the overall voyage that it takes, or the riches that may potentially be lost. But there is a magic that happens with friends as well as playing solo when you get into this game and the world that it inhabits. The water is also so beautiful. I could live forever in the Baja Blast water in the northwest part of the map. Now I want to turn attention to a game studio that I hold near and dear to my heart, but many that watching probably don't even know about. Long before the days of early internet, when CD-ROMs and games were able to be rented out at libraries, I was a young boy who was obsessed with humongous entertainment. The games by the studio are popular enough to be recognized by some of the characters, yet never spoken about in modern media. Backyard Baseball, Spy Fox, Putt Putt, as well as Pajama Sam and many others are on this list of characters with games from this studio, and each one of them is so impactful in my early life as well as nostalgia of early video games, looking back. The games, although simple and meant for children, have so much character compared to many modern games nowadays. Pajama Sam, for example, is the story of a young boy named Sam who is afraid of the darkness in his closet. To face darkness, Sam is able to put on his superhero suit, and with the assistance of his Pajama Man lunchbox, flashlight, as well as mask, he feels confident in trapping darkness in his lunchbox for eternity. But when entering his closet, he finds that he is transported to another world in which he is now part of the land of darkness, where he must find his items that were lost in his travel, as well as making friends along the way. Spy Fox follows the adventure of said protagonist as he attempts to save the world from bad guys of every shape and kind. With a huge emphasis of James Bond and his character, Spy Fox is a witty as well as a more grown-up adventure for kids, with some of the puzzles being more challenging. Each of these games by Humongous Entertainment are a breath of fresh air compared to games that are half made and half delivered upon release. Of course, there's an argument to be said that children's games are nothing more than that. Yet, reliving these experiences and going back to these games make me realize how much passion is put into them, as well as attention to detail for younger generations. I would highly recommend going back to these and trying them out for yourselves, especially because on Steam, most of them are less than $5 for a few hours of entertainment. Stardew Valley is still a relatively new game for me. About a year or two ago, my friend Jared and I had started to play through Terraria, a semi-relatively close game to Stardew, with its art style and progression, and we had a really fun time beating it together. Jared, throughout our time playing this game, continually pointed out small details and Easter eggs pointing to Stardew, and kept saying how much I would love the game and its impact. For me, however, I just kind of thought it was another farming simulator game. That was all I knew about it, and it didn't really appeal to me at that time. I was more into zombies, multiplayer fast-paced games that were more focused on quick experiences. Then, right around that time when we finished Terraria, I started to focus more on story-driven games, and slowing down my gaming experience as a whole. That's when things changed for me. Instead of always focusing on having a fast-paced, intense gaming session, I instead started to choose games which had greater emphasis on slowing down and enjoying the ride. Stardew Valley is the perfect example of this. What starts as a confusing beginning of a game, then quickly evolves into setting a routine within Stardew Valley. The mechanics at first glance are a bit confusing, and you can tell this game is an indie game in the way that it sets up multiple inventory spots, as well as objectives and games. But I think this is one of the joys of Stardew Valley as well. It's our objective to find our purpose in this game, and not be told outright what we're supposed to do. It's for the player to discover and decide what they want to do within their new farm. Maybe you want to focus entirely on farming, and growing your crop to increase your income, and crafting repertoire. Or perhaps instead of farming entirely, there's also the opportunity to go adventuring, mining, or even fishing. Or maybe you can focus on the dialogue and narrative experiences within the townsfolk, and creating relationships with them, as well as learning all of their backstories and their reasons for being in Pelican Town. Stardew Valley is one of those games that is always the comfort experience in which you are able to hop on for a day or two, do a little work, and create an unforgettable time, whether by yourself or with friends. The last game on my list for today is a game which I hold near and dear to my heart, and it is done by the same creator as Stanley Parable. The beginner's guide grapples with a thought-provoking story in which it concerns about what classifies an unreliable narrator and how this can affect the story, as well as our perception on who is right versus who is wrong. The story follows Davey, the creator, as well as a man who he knows named Coda. Coda's work has always been an inspiration for Davey, as well as his overall creativity in contrast to Davey. Yet, extra diegetically, this game is just a fascinating approach to the creation of video games, as well as creating an interesting story that we become immersed with despite possible lies as well as deception by the narrator/author. It makes you realize how immersive video games can be, as well as the storytelling that becomes a mystery that unfolds as you play. It's full of heart, as well as direct intention for what the player needs to feel, and the message that can be learned if you pay attention during this game. Above all, this game just has an amazing ending, as well as beautifully written and directed. I additionally asked my friends what their favorite games were, and what games they wish they could replay again for the first time, as if they were able to relive the experience all over again. And here were some of the responses that I received. I know, however, that this list is in no way a full list of games that fit this theme and description. There are so many games out there that it's hard to cover all at once. But part of the joy of expanding tastes and genres is the ability to find new games and to learn about new experiences that you have never witnessed. So on top of trying out these games for yourself, I'd also recommend, if you have any games that fit this idea of playing a game again for the first time, please leave it in the comment section below to create more memorable experiences for all of us. This video essay took a lot of time also, so if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and check out the channel. Currently, we are on our way to 2,000 subscribers, so if you want to join the journey and help out, please consider subscribing. As always, thanks for watching.